Okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming to this week's ToaD Learning Camp. We're going to talk about Walt Disney World. I just got back on Sunday night. I was there from Thursday until Sunday and got to experience the current normal as it would be. First of all, I flew from Madison, so a small airport. TSA was super easy. I did have to pull down my mask so that they could visually see that it was me, but you kept your distance. We had to scan our passport or driver's license and our boarding, or no, we had to scan our boarding pass, and then they visually looked at our license without taking it. They just looked at it while I held it. And so they didn't touch my boarding pass at all or my driver's license. They just looked at it and then checked to make sure I was registered on the flight and then let me go through to security. And everybody was required to wear their masks in the airport and on the plane. I flew Delta. I cannot say enough high regards for how they handle everything. I did 4 flights total over the weekend. Anytime somebody was not actively eating or drinking and did not have their mask on, they politely told them to put it on. They changed the way we boarded the plane and deboarded the plane, and they boarded from the back forward and a couple rows at a time, and just to give everybody enough space and enough time to get in there. Honestly, I don't know why they ever stopped boarding that way, because we got loaded so much quicker on every single flight. We were ready to leave 10 minutes before on every flight because how well they boarded us. Additionally, of course, the flights were not completely full. They did block off all the middle seats. So our flights were pretty full other than those middle seats, which that eliminates anywhere from 2/5 to a third of the people on the plane. So it definitely was a little bit lower than normal. They gave us a bag, a little plastic bag with a bottle of water, an individual Purell, napkin, cookies, and a snack, which we got Cheez-Its. And then it had a drawstring on the top so we could put our garbage in there and hand it to them. They made it clear that if they weren't wearing gloves, they were not taking any garbage from us, that we needed to make sure we were only handing it to them when they had gloves on. Other than that, they really didn't come around much. They just checked to make sure we were buckled in, and that was about it. But it went very smoothly. One of my flights, somebody came rushing up towards the front when they opened up the doors because they asked us to stay seated and then dismissed us by row. And they did let them know that that was not acceptable. Unless they had a tight connection, they should not be up. And told the other person to put his mask on. So in Orlando, I did not go to baggage claim and I did not use Magical Express. I had a car. Orlando right now, they are doing major construction on the A side. So we couldn't get, I'm sorry, on the B side. So they had moved, I believe they moved Magical Express over to the A side, and they also have only car rentals on the A side. So it was a little bit more of a hassle if you had luggage that you were checking in and going to the B side. To go to Magical Express, you'd have to go get your luggage and then go over to the other side. And same with a car rental. I went straight to the parks. I went to Hollywood Studios. It was incredibly hot. It was over 90 degrees that day, and the heat index, we were told, was well over 100. They do not have any trams in the parking lot. But they do move you up closer as the day goes on, and they're filling in the available spots. So it wasn't like in the past where they just would keep moving back and those open spots up forward, they wouldn't get those refilled very quickly. They did refill them quickly, and so I was fairly up close to the front. I was a little concerned walking into the park because I had to use the restroom, so I was walking fairly quickly and I was sweating to death. And I thought for sure my temperature would be too high, but it didn't. They just took my temperature and I walked right through. It is a little weird. They don't have you going through metal detectors. They have you going through the stanchions like they have at department store. So you're going through there and somebody is checking and watching you go through, and then every once in a while they'll pull someone out and have them go over and check if something just doesn't register right. My agent that was with me, she had a portable fan that she had clipped to her waistband, and so she got pulled aside because they couldn't tell what that was. When she held it up in her hand, they didn't stop her at all. So we went in, and then you don't have to scan your finger. You just scan your magic band and go right in. The lines, the number of people that were at the park didn't seem really bad when we first got into Hollywood Studios. But the lines were extremely long from what I was expecting. When we talked with Amy a few weeks ago, she had said that the lines were next to nothing, and it was not that way at Hollywood Studios. The line to get on the Millennium Falcon was an hour and a half. To get on Slinky Dog was over an hour. To get into Minnie and Mickey's Runaway Railroad was 90 minutes. We did go on Toy Story Mania because it was 15 minutes when we got on, or got in line. When we got off the ride, the line was actually a little bit shorter, but the wait was longer. It was up to 30 minutes after that. So they must have opened up more lines inside. They don't have, you know how you're always going back and forth in the queue. They don't have all the lines open so that you're not right next to someone. And the lines on the ground are marked so that if you're stopped, you're not next to someone. If the rows are wide enough, then they'll have you close. They won't block off the next row. But for instance, in Flights of Passage, when you get really close to the end of the queue, the lines are snaking back and forth, and they're pretty tight in there. And they've put up plexiglass walls in there, so you're not right on top of someone else. We felt really safe there. We didn't feel like we were being exposed in any way, but I did notice that there was a lot more people taking off their masks when they shouldn't, when they weren't eating or drinking, or they were drinking and walking, and nobody was saying anything to them, which was also different from what Amy had reported. At 2 o'clock, about 1:30, we ordered our food. There's not a lot of quick service restaurants open in Hollywood Studios, so it was a challenge to try and find one that was available at that time. And we placed an order. We ended up going to Docking, oh shoot, I can't think of the name of it, but the quick service in Star Wars Land. We placed our order, started walking over there, and we got probably I would say about a half a block away. We said that we were there, and we still waited about 25 minutes before our order was ready. So you definitely want to plan a little bit more in advance. You are required to do more mobile ordering for any quick service. And in that case, they wouldn't even let us into the restaurant until our order was ready. And then we could go in there, pick up our order, and get a table. Um, we were standing waiting for the table to, or for the order to be ready when 2 o'clock came around. And now the Rise of the Resistance, they do virtual queues still for that. And they do them at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And we were there refreshing our app every 2 seconds. And at 2 o'clock, we were shut out. We didn't even get on, or didn't even get in the queue. So that was kind of surprising for a Thursday. We thought we would have a chance. And that was pretty much the day on Thursday. The next day, we went to, we had our conference, and we were the first group to come back other than the NBA for a conference at Walt Disney World. They had buffets for us, but it was served to us. If this is any indication how some of the other things could go with buffets, they did a pretty good job. It was a little hard at times for them to hear us because there was a big plexiglass wall between us and the food. And so they were on the other side carrying their plates and asking us what we wanted on our plate. Everything was wrapped individually, the silverware with the napkins, the condiments were all wrapped separately. So like they had a little box for us with lettuce, tomato, onions, pickle, and some potato salad. And so if you wanted any of that, you had to take the whole thing. So it was a little bit of some waste there, but it was definitely, it was more convenient. You didn't have to worry about going through and dressing up your sandwich while you were in line or anything like that. That night we did go off property. Our group went and toured Margaritaville, which if you're looking for a big place to stay, the cottages at Margaritaville are great. Up to 8 bedrooms. We're thinking retreat. But we had dinner at Ford's Garage, and we ended up going to the Ford's Garage that's over by the Florida Mall. And they were ready for us. We had called in advance because our group leader had made the reservation at the wrong Ford's Garage. We thought we were going to the one at Margaritaville, and it was actually at the other one. So we ordered appetizers on the phone, and they said, we'll have your table ready for you when you get here. And I want to say we had about 12 to 14 people with us. So we had 2 tables. There was an empty table between us, and something just went totally wrong, and they were not ready for us. The service was probably the worst we've ever had. We didn't get beverages until, well, one never came at all. The others came after we got our food, our dinner, not our appetizers. So it just wasn't real good, but the manager explained to us at the end of the night why, and I think this is a really good thing for everyone to remember. The week before, they had nobody there at all. So trying to figure out staffing, not knowing how many tourists are coming down and how many people are going to be going out to their restaurant to eat, it was really a challenge for them. And so they had a lot of extra managers on hand cooking in the kitchen, bartending, serving drinks. We thought it was unusual that they brought out a drink and didn't know what it was. Yeah, they just said, we're not sure what this is. We think it's for your table. And like, how do you not know what your drinks are? But it kind of made sense later when we saw what was going on. You know, we had one person that didn't even get their entree until after everybody was done eating. So it just wasn't really that great of an experience. I would say it's very important to pack some patience going anywhere touristy right now, just because you don't know how many people are going to be there, and they're still adjusting to the unpredictable levels of guests. Um, on Saturday, we went to Epcot. Um, the difficult thing that I'm finding too are the hours that Disney is open. Epcot doesn't open until 11 o'clock. Come November, they will be opening at noon. And they closed at 7, and in November they'll be closing at 8. So they're not staying open more hours, they're just shifting the hours. The lines for food and wine were atrocious. We could not even get in line to go into the Mexican pavilion at all. They closed off the line, it was too full. They told us maybe try back in an hour to see if they were opening up the line. We asked if that was for the shops or for the cave or the ride, and they said yes, everything. In order to just get into that building, there's a capacity limit. So the rides were pretty long for most of the rides at Epcot. There is a significant amount of construction in Epcot. The whole front, basically the middle of the whole future land or future world is gone. Mouse Gears was moved over to Innovations and is significantly smaller. They added walkways and that go around where it was all cast member areas before. So we came into the seas, like past the seas area where it would have been blocked off and just a dead end there. That went straight through and over to Spaceship Earth. And then from Spaceship Earth, it went around further over towards where the Universe of Energy was. So now those walkways are out further because everything in the middle is under construction. The lines going into the land were not bad at all, which surprised me. We basically walked on to Living with the Land after we went back and forth through the maze to get in there. We could have waited 30 minutes to get on Soaring. So it really wasn't that bad in there. Finding Nemo, 10-minute wait. But Star Tours, or not Star Tours, Test Track was 90 minutes. And everything in the countries was just a long, long line. It took me 20 minutes to get a slushie. And the reason why it took so long is what kind of soured me a little bit on the trip. There was only one cast member in the kiosk for the slushies. So they were doing the register and they were doing the serving. And yet they had a significant line waiting out there. And that was kind of the case at a lot of different locations. So they seemed to be cutting back on who was staffing, and that did really affect how long the lines were. It was hard to figure out how long the lines really were, because they are spacing everyone everywhere 6 feet apart. So you could get in a line and actually, if you're familiar with where the kiosk is in France for the slushies, I was standing over by the painting that's set up, just the pictures that look like, I mean, they're not actually painting, but it looks like someone's there with an easel. I was way down there when I first started, and there was probably only 6 or 7 groups ahead of me. So it wasn't that there was that many people. I'm not sure if if the distancing was why they were understaffed, um, but it very well could have been. Um, we ended up leaving in the late afternoon because it was brutally hot again, and went and swam for a while. Now at the pool, they said that you had to wear masks when you were around the pool, but if you were in the pool, you didn't. That was not policed at all. We saw a lot of people walking around the pool without masks on. And there definitely wasn't any kind of distancing when you were in the pool. We went and did the lazy river around, and you know, people were running into people and whatnot, and it didn't seem to be a big concern. In the resort, we had cleaning every other day. Since we were only there 3 nights, we were to have cleaning on the second night. We didn't get service until after 5:30 at night, which I think is a little concern because the parks are closing between 5 and 7 o'clock. So most people are going back to their rooms by then. So it was a little bit of a hassle. We actually thought we got missed. So we called guest services, and we actually had 2 people come up with towels because one of them was one of them was our actual person, and the other one was who they sent up to take care of getting us towels. And we went back to Epcot later for dinner, and we ate dinner at Beer Garden, and they are not doing it as a buffet right now. They are doing it family style, and our server brought out a tray of salads. We could have as much as we want. We could order seconds if we wanted. And then he brought out the main dishes, and then he brought out the dessert. They did still have the entertainment there, which surprised us. The band was playing while we were there. There definitely weren't very many people in the restaurant, but we did dine late. The restaurant or the park closed at 7, and our reservation was for 6:40. Much like ordering with mobile ordering, they do want you to check in online for the sit-down restaurants as well. So you'll go on your app and see the restaurant and then indicate that you're there and check in. This was a little bit of a confusion because we checked in. I got an error on the app, but I got a text message saying that I was checked in. And 10 minutes later, I went and checked, and they said I wasn't checked in. So definitely, if you get an error, I would definitely look at it and make sure you get checked in. But the same thing happened at Ale and Compass with my other agent. She went to the podium and said she was there for a reservation, and they said, "Did you check in online?" And she said no, so had to go on the app and check in. All of the menus are done with a QR code, and either for the quick service or for the regular restaurants. So I'm not really sure how much the menus have changed because I ate at places that I've never eaten before. And Beer Garden was a buffet, so it pretty much was the same food as it was before. Melissa didn't say, she's eaten there many times, and she said that it wasn't any different than she's had before. But I have heard that they have cut back on the menus. They're not as extensive as they were before. And then we went to Disney Springs that night, and that was pretty straightforward. They did check our temperatures in the parking ramp. Only one of the ramps was open, and it was not the one we were hoping was open. And then we came down and went through and just came in. So we had the temperature check inside the ramp, and then crossed over and came into Disney Springs. They were checking at every store. If you walked into the store, there was a cast member there clicking in how many people were coming in. And when someone left, they clicked in how many people went out. And they would stop people from coming in if they had too many people in the store. Disney Springs, the Disney store was another challenge. They have one door open, the rest of them are all exits, and the line was incredibly long to get there. But granted, it was Saturday night, no parks were open anymore, so people didn't have anything else to do. We ended up not going into the Disney store, and we went over to other stores, and we were able to get in there without any problem. And then the next morning we went over to Animal Kingdom. Now that was probably the best experience that we had. The park opened at 9. They opened up the parking lot at 8:30. We went through our checks when we walked in, got the temperature check, got the security check, and walked right into the park. They let us go right in and get lined up for Flights of Passage. If you're familiar with where Flights of Passage is, and where the regular line is, not the Fast Pass line, it was coming up to the top of the entrance to Pandora, and then we went out on the bridge that went all the way over to Tusker House. And when we got in, we didn't get as far out as the bridge. And I saw a cast member out there, so I went and questioned him and said, how long would someone standing here at the beginning of the bridge have to wait to get on the ride? Just to get an idea, because that's a long ways away in my opinion, but we're all 6 feet apart. And he said, under normal circumstances, that would be about 25 to 30 minutes. So not terribly bad considering how far out it was. But at that moment, they opened up the inside queue, and we were in the parking lot at 8:06. We were on the ride at 9:03, I think. So it went very, very quickly considering they weren't even open yet. We went over to Kilimanjaro Safari after that. Well, actually, back on Flight of Passage, they don't have the pre-show completely. You know how you go into the first room and they assign you a circle. Now they put the first 3 groups in the second room and the other groups in the first room. And they leave a vehicle open between each group. So we were number 7 and 8, but they told us to stand on the 3rd circle. And then they did the pre-show part where they just come, what would normally happen in the second room is all that they do. And then you go in and ride the ride. There's no plexiglass or anything in there because there's one empty vehicle between us and the next person. Then we went over to Kilimanjaro Safari, and what they've done there is they have a big plastic, a heavy plastic sheet that hangs down from the ceiling on the vehicle down to the edge of the seat, and they put your whole party in one row. That was really nice, not having to take up all available space, and that we could have a row to ourselves and not feel mushed in there. And so that was definitely a plus. And that's pretty much all we did, because then I had to catch a flight. And I'm trying to think, there was one other thing I was going to mention. On the land, they had the same thing. They had the sheets in between the rows. So that's pretty much, if there isn't a way to socially distance, they put the sheets in between you or a plexiglass wall in between you and others. If there is a way to socially distance, then they do that. So like on the Spaceship Earth, we had, since it was just the two of us, we had our whole car to ourselves. They didn't have anybody in the seats behind us. The group ahead of us was a group of four, so they were on a whole car to themselves, and then we had a whole car empty between us. So there was quite a bit of space that they were putting between people. We were a little concerned with how long the line seemed at Spaceship Earth, but it actually went really quick. It didn't seem like things were going slower, and actually some of the lines actually felt like they were going a little bit faster because you were walking a little bit quicker when you were moving between people. You weren't just, you know, you didn't have somebody moving 2 inches and you're trying to get 2 inches further. So I did get a couple questions that I think one I've already answered about the menus. Do I think, or actually, Todd, do you want to just ask the questions? No? I said, do I think that Walt Disney World has changed for the better or worse in their response to current events since the last learning camp which touched on the issue? I have mixed feelings about this. I do feel like they're doing a good job in the setup. It's the execution that I had a little bit of trouble with, you know, not enforcing the masks. If they want us all to wear them, then we should all be wearing them. And they should have that consistent. I also felt that the staffing was a little less. If they, and I think, you know, it's hard to bring back all the employees that you need, but if you're having more guests come in, I do think they need to increase the staffing. It would definitely alleviate some of the wait time and be able to open up some other restaurants. Like I said, I think there was only two or three quick service restaurants open in Hollywood Studios, and that was it. So it was a little bit of a challenge. And what do you think Disney could do to improve how they're handling the current situation? The only thing is, I would say, get more cast members there. Everything else was pretty good. I mean, there's tons of hand sanitizer everywhere. You can't turn around with it. I mean, the old saying was with the garbage cans that everywhere you went, there was a garbage can 2 feet away from you. It's that way with hand sanitizer right now. Nobody was making us use any hand sanitizer, like I've heard that they're doing at Universal on some rides, but it definitely was available if you wanted to use it. Same with some hand washing stations. We did see a few of those. The comfort stations, those were more difficult to find than we thought. We only saw one in Hollywood Studios, and it was outside. So it was already hot, and you really couldn't get a place to cool off. You could just get a place to sit and take off your mask. In Animal Kingdom, they told us that there was 2, and we stopped by the one at actually, yeah, I think it was at Pizza Safari. And that one was both inside and out. So they had some seating outside, but then they also did have an area inside. And you had your choice where you wanted to go there. So those are pretty much all the questions that I have. Let's see. I found the crowds to be lighter for this time of year than they normally are, but I wouldn't consider them light. I thought it was still pretty busy. Now, Melissa, my other agent, she went on Monday to Magic Kingdom, and the temperature was about 10 degrees cooler and the lines were less. And she said it was definitely a better experience. But she said she still would recommend that you pack your patience if you're going to Disney right now. It's just, you don't know what it really depends how many people are going to be there. And I'd almost be willing to say, if you are planning to go to a certain park and you look at the park availability and your park is no longer available, if you don't want to be around that many people, I would switch parks. Last weekend, at least one park, possibly more than that. Is it still froze? Okay. It's, oh, we lost somebody. And okay, so I also have a question about fast passes. Fast passes are not available right now. That I've heard that they're coming back. We haven't heard anything officially from Disney yet when they're going to come back. I think they definitely need them. Even if they're socially distancing the lines for fast pass and maybe not having as many spots available for fast pass, I think they do need to have that, because it gets really old looking at every line that's over an hour long. I don't go into a line unless it's less than half an hour, and then I even have to question it. So it made it a little bit of a challenge to go on rides this time. I did not notice if the Cirque show was open right now. We didn't get over that far. Okay, I think that's all of the questions. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you guys have other questions for me.
Trace, there's still no like resort hopping though. You know, if you're staying at Beach Club, you can't hop over to Kidani or something.
That's not necessarily true. It depends how you're getting over there. If you're driving, they will insist on seeing that you have a reservation either at a restaurant or at a counter service, and you have to have your mobile order already. We went over to Grand Floridian to get a cupcake, and we got to the gate, and I had asked at the yacht club if they were going to let me park there. And she said, oh yes, you're a guest here, you can certainly park there. And as soon as we got to the gate, he said, you know, what are you doing? And we said, we're going to get a cupcake. And he said, oh, you're going to go over to, I can't remember what he called it. He called it by some nickname.
Gasparillas.
Yeah, but he called it like Gatsby's or something like that. I don't know. And so we said that's where we were going to go. And he said, well, have you used the mobile ordering app? You need to go up here and turn around and come back and make your order. And then you can come back through and I'll let you into park. So you could go, but you had to have an order. Now, taking the monorail or taking a bus over to another resort, that's not a problem at all. They're not checking for that. But driving, they are.
So we could just do like you did, go and order a cupcake or, I don't know, a little thing. I'm thinking like at Wilderness Lodge. I can't think of what it's called.
My question.
The big bar. What was your question?
What if I want to just Uber to a resort and go and drink at the bar?
Uber's the same thing though, right? They'll stop the Ubers as well, right? I would think.
I'm not sure that they would, because you're just getting dropped off there. They were checking to make sure I had a reservation in order to park there.
Okay.
So I would think that if you were just going in to, if you were just going into with an Uber, that it wouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd heard they increased capacity last week from 25 to 50%. Do you know if that's true?
I've seen a lot of rumors about that. I'm not sure. The hard part is we don't know how many were 25%, what that's based on. I've heard that they upped it to 50%. I've heard that they've upped it to 80%. And so I don't know that anybody really knows where they're at. It definitely didn't feel as crowded as it's been in September before when I've been there, but it also didn't feel like it was dead, like a lot of people have been reporting.
I don't need to ask. You ask. I don't know what your question is.
Are any of the indoor dining restaurants open in the parks, like say?
Yep, they all are. Well, I shouldn't say they all are. All the ones that are open are, I mean, there are some that do have inside dining that are open.
Are they doing the luau?
I don't know if they're doing the luau right now.
Okay.
I know that, like we were at the yacht club and Ale and Compass was open, Ale and Compass Lounge was open. Ale and Compass Lounge was completely packed. So we were meeting with our speaker the night before and we ended up going over to Martha's Vineyard and we had to wait in line there to get a table. They've got all the tables spread out and you're told not to move any tables, not to move any chairs at the pool areas. The Beaches and Cream was totally packed. I mean, there was people all over on the sidewalk going in there. It was just
So they're
very,
not
very
social
packed.
distancing? No,
I mean, they are inside, but
but not
weren't-
outside.
They're not outside.
Okay, so inside they are still.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like going in through Epcot, I noticed that the quick service in Morocco was closed, but Spice Table was open.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Restaurant Marrakesh. There weren't a lot of people over in that area when we were there. It was mostly, it seemed like over by Mexico and Norway and China, that's where it really started getting packed, and Germany too.
Yeah, Mexico always is.
But the caramel shop was open, so.
That's a good thing.
But they would not cut my apples, so I didn't get an apple.
Oh, they wouldn't cut them?
No,
Oh, wow.
no, they said they couldn't right now.
Okay. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So did you enjoy your trip?
I'm not a hot weather person,
Okay.
so I was pretty miserable. I also hit a new all-time record on my Fitbit. I had 28,000 steps on Saturday. So
That's a lot.
I was a little tired.
Yes.
But yeah, it was interesting to see how they were doing it. I can tell you, if you're not used to wearing a mask all the time, and I work at home, the only time I wear a mask is when I go to the store and go out, which is only, maybe once or twice a week at the most. And one morning, Friday morning, when I was going to the conference, I left before Melissa did, and I had my mask with me and I had all my other stuff, and I walked out the door, walked to the elevator, got on the elevator, went down, passed somebody, didn't even think twice, got out to the lobby and looked at some other guy that just was like walking right towards me, and he had a big paper mask on his face, and I went, oh my God, I don't have my mask on. And so that was kind of hard to,
Probably
it was
hot.
hard if you're not used to doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And because pretty much everywhere inside and out, we were wearing it. The only time we weren't was in the pool or in our room.
Okay.
And or in the car. And every time we got in the car, we're like ripping it off right away. So
Are they still allowing delivery to like the resorts and stuff if you want to get food?
I have heard that they are, yes.
Okay.
I know initially they said they probably weren't, but I haven't heard of anybody that's had a problem with that.
Okay. Sounds good. Different experience, I guess.
Yeah. And it was interesting going over to Margaritaville too, because we toured both the resort and the cottages, and they were not. The only place we saw lines on the ground at Margaritaville were in front of the concierge desk where you could buy tickets for Disney, but otherwise we didn't see lines anywhere. Over there, they've changed the transportation. They normally have scheduled transfers over to Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld, and now you have to make a reservation for it. It's still complimentary, but you have to have a reservation. They won't do it automatically. So there was a lot of things like that it just wasn't. It was a little bit more inconvenient than it usually is.
Okay.
Not necessarily totally bad, but not as carefree as it usually is.
Okay. Good to know.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Okay. No. I don't think so.
Mark Ryan?
I just hollered over to him to see if he had any other questions. And I replied to him, a lot of the bars are still not open. Which is one of our favorite
Hotel
things,
bars.
hotel bars
Pool bars.
to bounce around.
Well, at the beach club, the Hurricane Hannah's was open,
Okay.
Galen Compass was open, and so was the Martha's Vineyard.
Okay.
Um,
The island ain't open, is it?
No, none of the Orleans are open.
no, and they don't anticipate they're going to be open this year.
Not this
Now is like Italy open with their wine and stuff like that?
Oh,
Yep.
Okay.
Victoria Falls.
Not open.
Oh, that I don't know because we didn't get over there.
I can answer that one. Not open.
Okay. I can tell you that oh no, I just lost my train of thought. I was just pulling up to see which part or which resorts are open and which ones aren't. If you're at a resort that has transportation other than just bus transportation, so like a boat, or well, I shouldn't say the boats because the boats aren't running. The friendship boats aren't running at all.
Wow.
I'm not sure about the ones between the resort. Well, I know that the one from Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom is not running. They were waiting until the NBA was out of there before that was going to start up. So I'm not sure if that has started up yet or not. The boats are not running in the Epcot Resorts area at all. So your only option if you're staying at Beach Club, Yacht Club, or Boardwalk to go to Hollywood Studios is to take the Skyliner or to walk.
Oh, that's good to know. I thought the boats would be open.
Yeah, they were
Wow.
not.
Oh, okay.
And if the Skyliner is able to run, there is no bus transportation from those either. So if you're staying at Caribbean Beach and the Skyliner is running, you cannot get a bus to Epcot or to Hollywood Studios because the Skyliner is operating. Same with Riviera then and Pop Century. Which if you're not a fan of riding in the Skyliner, either because it's too hot or you're scared to death of being up in the sky, that's kind of a little bit of a challenge. But I know Melissa didn't realize that, and she ended up walking from Yacht Club over to Hollywood Studios the first day.
Wow.
Territory.
Crazy.
And Caribbean Beach is open. Coronado Springs is supposed to open mid-November, mid-October, but there's some rumors that might be pushed back. And then the Port Orleans resorts are not going to open this year. The All-Stars are not scheduled to open yet. We don't know when they will.
Do
Um,
not care.
and Wilderness Lodge is not scheduled to open. Same with Beach Club. But Beach Club Villas and Wilderness Lodge, both villa properties there, are open.
That's fine. Nothing.
So is Boardwalk open totally?
I can't remember if that one is or not. The villas definitely are, but I'm not sure about the resort.
Okay. Wow. Very different.
Yeah. And I'm not really sure why they're keeping all the resorts closed other than just
Capacity.
managing how many people. I don't know if there's more to it than that. I know with the Grand Floridian regular resort, Coronado Springs, and I think the Beach Club was the third one. That's where the NBA players were. So they were keeping those closed for that. I think that the teams that are still in the playoffs, I think they're trying to get them all to Coronado Springs, and that one's going to be the last one to open, except for now Beach Club hasn't gone back on the list as far as I can see for when they're going to be open.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah. And the resorts that are open, they are trying to, they're trying to get everything done to make the resort better for the 50th. And so that's why there's all the construction going on in Epcot, and there's construction going on at a lot of the resorts. Our hotel, the guest services was closed, and the guest services agents were over at the Bell Services desk. So they did have guest service agents walking around in the lobby. So if you came anywhere near guest services, they would ask you if you needed anything. And so in that case, I mean, there were a lot of people around in that role. We just never saw anyone in housekeeping, and
Do they hope to have that all done by the 50th?
yeah.
Okay.
And we also believe they're waiting until they kind of see how things are going before they open up the bookings for fall of next year. Because right now you can't book past September 26th of 2021.
Okay.
And we don't expect that to come back until next year. And park hoppers are due to come back next year too.
Okay.
That would have helped a lot, I think. And that's part of the problem that I had. I am not a one park person.
Yeah.
I go and do the couple things I want to do, and then I go over to another park and do something else. And we didn't have the choice to do that. So it was kind of a little bit of a struggle, because when we were at Hollywood Studios, when we weren't able to get on Rise of the Resistance, we would have left and gone to another park, but instead we just left.
Yeah.
Went.
That's the hard part. If you've been there a lot, you want to hop all over.
Yeah.
And you can't. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gone where I haven't hopped, except
I
for
know.
this time. Even the very first time I was ever there, I went to 3 parks in one day. So
Yeah. We hop all the time, so it'll be very different.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When's your next trip?
The December 1st.
So it's good to know what's going on. We're kind of debating how it's going to be,
I know
so
Kelly's going towards the end of the year, and who else is
Yeah.
going towards the end of the year yet?
Maybe. We'll see if I chicken out or not.
yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Mullen and Louise are going. So
They're going to be down at the same time you are?
yeah.
Yes.
We do it every year. We've done it forever. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see what happens,
We're going down Thanksgiving, but no parks.
Mhm.
Okay, just going down there. That's what we thought. If it's really bad, we won't do that, but we don't know.
Yeah, that's tempting too, because I don't even want to use I have an AP voucher right now that I'm like, I'd rather buy park tickets, I think, at this point, if I was going to, since and save my AP voucher for next year and hopefully a few different trips come late spring and then again in the fall.
Yeah.
Well, if you're
See,
buying tickets, contact your travel and a dream agent.
See, our passes will expire after that, so we're done. So hopefully we can use them. We haven't used them, so it would be nice.
I mean, I think the big thing is, as long as you know what you're getting into and you're comfortable with the restrictions and you're comfortable with wearing a mask while you're there, then, and you don't mind lines and Florida heat, then, I don't see any reason not to go. I wouldn't stay away because I was scared to be there. I would personally stay away because I don't like the heat. I don't like the lines.
Yeah.
I've been known to walk into a park and turn around and go back and give up a whole day's pass just because I just wasn't having it. Because that's what I like Disneyland much better, because it's not as humid and it can get hot like that, but it's just a little bit more comfortable to me. So,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't stay away because of fear of going there. Even on the plane, it was not, I never felt bad on the plane. In fact, the plane, I felt the safest that I've ever felt on a plane.
Wow.
So, yeah. But I know it's not the case with all air carriers. I know
Sure.
that I've heard stories that American and United are packing them in tight. So you definitely want to check if you're flying and you're uncomfortable, check who you're flying with. Southwest has blocked off the seats for quite a while. And Delta has, I think JetBlue has. I'm not sure if of the others, but you have to do what you're most comfortable with. But I think the worst part is if you don't know what to expect, then it's hard to make a decision. We get that almost every day. We get people telling us that their experience is going to be subpar for things that haven't even come back yet. And I don't think you can make that judgment until people have been doing it and you see what the experience is. And if you're not comfortable with it, by all means, don't go. I'm thinking of like the cruises. They're not operating from the US right now. We don't know exactly what's going to happen when they do operate. So I think to assume that it's going to be a bad experience is not really, it doesn't really do you any good.
Oh, God, no.
'Cause
Gotta
if
have a
you-
positive outlook.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've had clients cancel their trip long before this was an issue, but they canceled their trip because of something going on in their life when the trip was like 2 years down the road.
Oh, wow.
Like the biggest one is a family member that's terminal, and they don't know how long they're going to last, but they want to cancel their trip 2 years from now because if they should die, they're not going to go on the trip. And I'm like, but if something happens soon, you're going to wish you had that trip.
Yes.
So I think it's always good to see how things play out and see what you're the most comfortable with and go with that.
Our backup is drink wine then. We can't go anywhere else. We'll drink wine.
That's a common backup this year.
Yeah. Wine and pizza somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Kevin, do you have anything to add for us? Because you've been to Disney a few weeks ago or about a month ago.
It's a lot different. So I just wonder if when they opened it up, did they, the difference between you going last week and me going a couple of weeks ago, I mean, I had a much different experience. The lines weren't long. It was during the week. I'll give it that. But I mean, I got on Rise of the Resistance twice in 2 trips, right? 2 different days. But I don't know, like, some of the things that you were commenting on, I felt too. So it wasn't all that, but I just wonder, I mean, I'm actually scheduled to go up there next week, but that was more to spend time with my family. I do have some park passes booked just in case I do want to get away for the day and, do something for a couple hours. So I'm hesitant to want to do that because I want to see my family and I haven't seen them since the holidays. So that's mainly the reason why I wouldn't go in, but I'll give it a try though, just one day. Probably studios, right? Because if I had luck twice, I want to go a third time. And but it's definitely given me some pause because I mean, after this next week, I won't go again for the rest of the year. I probably won't have a chance till sometime next year. So I definitely agree with you though on some of those points, like with the mobile ordering and especially in studios. I mean, they won't let you in anywhere. I had good experience in the sit-down restaurants. I did enjoy. I went to Wilderness for breakfast one morning, and then took the boat over to Magic Kingdom that day. So I mean that was operational. Just trying to think of some of the other things. Yeah, I agree with the pool. I stayed at Pop, so I didn't go near that pool. I mean, everybody was in the pool. Nobody had a mask on. I wasn't getting involved in any of that. But I mean, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I do disagree though about Fast Pass because I think if they bring back Fast Pass, then the lines will be much, much, much longer because I think they go as quickly as they do when they are short because there is no Fast Pass. So the people that were Fast Pass aren't there anymore. So everyone's just getting in line and getting on the rides.
Yeah.
So I think that will delay it further when they do introduce that. And without the fireworks shows and the park hopping, yeah, I mean, I was back at my room by probably 4 o'clock every day, if not earlier some days, because there just wasn't anything left to do. And like you, 28,000 steps, I'm done. So
Makes sense.
but I had a much more pleasant experience than you did. But then I also was solo. I mean, I had a couple of friends meet me in the park 2 of the days, but it's a lot different too when you're by yourself because you're zipping through. And I mean, if I'm on a mission, I'm going there and I'm getting something done. So a little bit different, but yeah, it was way too hot for me. And I live here in South Florida. So, I mean, definitely hot. Having a mask on all day was uncomfortable, but boohoo, right? I mean, I got over it at the end of the day. I still had a good time. I made the most of it. And like you're saying, I didn't know about the flying part, right? Me, all I have to do is drive 3 hours. So if you can get on a plane and be comfortable with that and get down there and enjoy Disney the way that you like, right? If you're okay with not seeing the shows and waiting a little bit longer, then I'd say go do it and enjoy yourself and have a good time.
That could be why the lines were much longer at Hollywood Studios. Just they've got so many shows that are closed because of this that the rides just tend to have more lines. The other thing I was going to mention is one of my agents came back and she lives in Orlando. She said, use the disposable masks because, they get wet, then you can just throw them out. I didn't use a disposable mask, but I did find there's definitely a difference in the mask that you use. And if you're going to go down there, I would put a mask on and take some really deep breaths and see how you feel. If the mask is hitting your lips, you're not going to be comfortable when it's hot. I have a couple that end up with a big gap right around my mouth, and no matter how hard I breathe, I still have a gap there. And when I wore those, I felt so much better. And it's just...
on the elastic too. Like I was thinking, like, oh, do I have a headache? Like there's this weird tension on my head, and then I realized, oh, it's my ears. It's the elastic. And then sometimes I would just be in line holding the elastic away from my ear for a second, just because that was the part that was more uncomfortable than really this part.
Yeah.
It was pulling on the ear, and I was like, oh. And I have different size masks, and all of them did that after 2 hours. You're just
right.
they're not, you know, they're not meant to, I guess, be on that day. So I definitely have a huge amount of respect for the medical profession because they wear masks all the time and never realized how much I took that for granted.
I know I was taking my mask and just holding my chin out just a little bit because I just was so hot there. And I got the fan that Tanya recommended, and I thought I wasn't. I thought I wasn't gonna like it very well because it would be blowing up on my face and my eyes because I have eye issues. I loved it. I kept turning. I tried to start and keep it at low so I'd have room to move up, and I would blow that right at my chin so that it would kind of go under my mask and cool off my chin a little bit. Tanya's modeling it.
She got it on. Wait, where is she? Oh, there she is.
Where'd she get that? Amazon?
Yeah. It wasn't that expensive. It was definitely less than 20. I want to say it was around 15 or 16.
Yeah, about there.
Yeah.
And it's got colorful lights.
It's
It can come on or off.
rechargeable.
So yeah, it's rechargeable. You just plug it in like at the USB.
And I used it a good portion of the day on Saturday, and it never ran out of juice.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's good to know.
Anybody have any other questions? If not, I'm gonna stop the recording and thank you all for coming.